Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Tuine.
Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, the Say No to PPO series. I am one of your hosts today, Jordan Comstock. I got Ben Tuine on the line. Ben, what's up, dog?
What's up, Jordan? Hey, man, it snowed this morning.
I know, and I hated it. I hate the snow.
No way. I drove. I drove through it this morning because it for about 3 minutes it was a blizzard. Yes.
Yes, a small little blizzard. Yeah. I thought about driving another car to work today, but then I looked out. I'm like, oh, it's already melting. So I was happy about that.
Oh, it's all gone. I mean, I can still see it on the mountains, but it's been a horrible winter in the valley here in Utah. There's no snow on the ground. The resorts I think are doing okay. It's not as powdery snow as skiers and snowboarders like, but you know, we're all alive and air's clean. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I consider this winter a wonderful winter because I hate the snow so bad. Yeah. I don't know why I live here, Ben. Sometimes I wish I lived on the islands where you used to live, Ben, so I can do the haka with you.
Yeah. Let's talk about that in a minute. But we're excited to have Andrea on the call with us today. Andrea Greer. The famous Hi. Andrea.
Famous. I'm famous now.
Yes.
Well, I have to tell you, Jordan, I am right there with you. I hate snow. I used to live in Colorado, and I'm done. I live in Austin, Texas now. Love it. Although this winter has been cold and overcast. It's ugly.
Man. I wish I would have known that because I was just in Austin, Texas, beginning of December.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
yep,
I probably will go because I love Austin, Texas. It's such a
amazing
cool city. Yeah, it's such a cool city.
It is.
So,
great place.
Let's give our audience a little background about Andrea. So, Andrea, I got her bio here. You've been in dentistry for over 25 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool there. You're old. 25 years. You are the founder of On Point Dental Consulting.
Yes.
And then you're an active member of the Speakers and Consulting Network, the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, and ADOM Speaker and Consultants Alliance. Very cool.
Yeah. Yes.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get in dentistry?
So I by accident. It really was an accident.
Yeah.
I moved from Washington State to Colorado back when I was just a young thing. And I had never been there, and a friend said, hey, do you want a job? And I said, sure, which was great because that's the first thing I was going to have to do was go out and get a job. And so she brought me in her office, and they trained me as a dental assistant chairside. And within a couple of months, I knew that this is where I wanted to be, and I decided to go to dental hygiene school. And I earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado and practiced for about 15 years. In Colorado, and also did some office management. I was a Dentrix trainer for about 5 years.
Nice.
And I did some consulting, and then 5 years ago, I went into full-time consulting. So love what I do, love that I get to speak, and I'm passionate about helping practices, and I am so blessed in my career and my journey.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I heard about you a few years ago. I think it was through Dentrix and American Fork here in Utah. You did some training here locally, and then, it seems like you do have a lot of speaking engagements across the country. And so, from what I know, you're a hot commodity. I think,
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
We were talking before the podcast about the most recent conference that Jordan and I attended, where I was asked to do the haka in front of a bunch of people. Funny thing is Dr. Craig Spodak. I don't know if you know him, Andrea. He's out of he does a podcast too, but he speaks nationwide as well. And he's just this tall, really good-looking guy. He does a lot of work with Tony Robbins, and it's quoted in Tony Robbins' most recent book. Yeah. And I'm at this I'm in the lobby. Jordan and I go and we shake his, meet him, shake his hand. And he's like, dude, do you know how to do the haka? I was like, yeah. I didn't know he was going to ask me to do it. He's like, can you do it for me? So we go to...
No pressure.
I know. Well, I was excited. I was like, yeah, I've done the haka 1,000 times. I can do it for you today. So we go to the photo area, where they have that nice backdrop and where people take their pictures. And we stand there, and I just start going crazy.
Yeah, I was like legit scared. I thought he was gonna kill me.
It's a little intimidating to watch. Yeah.
It takes. I mean, you have to put on the face. And funny thing is so Dr. Spodak recorded. Well, one of his podcast colleague recorded it and emailed it to me. I was like, you look at Dr. Spodak. He's there with me doing the haka, and he's just following my moves.
Guy.
And it was actually really funny. It was funny to watch. I mean, if Dr. Spodak did the haka in front of a bunch of women, they'll just swoon. The guy's he's like a model. But
and then afterwards, he was so pumped up, he like ran over to me and like just picked me up.
Bear hugged you.
Like,
that's so funny.
I gotta pick somebody up, and like I'm short, Andrea, so. He looked around and saw the shortest guy, which was me, and he like just picks me up and throws me in the air. Like, wow.
No, but a lot of people don't know that the haka, it started in New Zealand, and it's a war dance. That's what you do when you're on the battlefield, and it's an opportunity for you to intimidate your opponent as well as offer some respect, because there are a lot of family ties between the tribes, and then. The other reason for the haka is to welcome visitors. So it's funny, back in the 1970s or 60s, I believe, when Bob Marley went to New Zealand, and Bob Marley had this whole entourage behind him, and a bunch of the Maori warriors were right there, and they did the haka in front of him, and they put down this leaf, and depending on how you pick it up, we'll say, we're here to engage in war, we're friends. If you have your palm up as you're picking up the flower, then that means we're visitors. But the haka is a sign of respect for visitors. So anytime you go to New Zealand and you're a dignitary or an important person, even in dentistry, if you go and you're an important person to speak to a group of dentists in New Zealand, they'll do the haka for you. And it's a sign of respect. It's a sign of welcome. It scares the crap out of a lot of people, but it's a cultural thing that I'm proud of. In Samoa,
Sure.
do the same thing, but it's one of the things that I'm passionate about in dentistry is I get to do the haka from time to time. But enough about that. Andrea, what we want to know, and our listeners would love to know, what are you most passionate about in dentistry today?
Oh, I have to tell you, over the years of practicing, I had the same frustrations that so many doctors and other practitioners see day to day, and that's that people just don't value dentistry. And I had a lot of frustration surrounding that. And I would say in the last 10 years, I've really been able to kind of identify why that might have happened. Having with the Dentrix training and the consulting combination of those two things, I've really been able to listen in on a lot of conversations between providers and patients, and it's really very interesting. I have come to the conclusion that we as an industry, and I'm not pointing any fingers specifically at anybody because I was just as guilty, but I believe that as an industry, we've done just a really good job of devaluing what we provide. A lot of that, I think, is hugely driven by insurance and what's happened with the insurance industry. But I think there's a lot of things that we do on a day-to-day basis that really devalue what we're providing. How many years have you heard hygienists say, I'm not a cleaning person. I'm not a cleaning woman. Don't call it a cleaning. It's not a cleaning. But yet we still do. So,
Right.
Yeah.
That's really where I like to focus. And with practices, when I'm working with them and when I'm speaking, I want people to really understand that, we can't expect the public to change their perception of dentistry until we start talking differently about it.
Yeah.
And so I really try and challenge my listeners or the teams that I'm working with, whoever it is that has the unfortunate moment to be being lectured at. I really try and challenge them, change the conversation, change what you're saying to patients, because little tweaks every day can go a long way towards really building value for what we're providing. It's amazing. No, go ahead. That's okay.
Let's talk about that in detail.
Sure.
How does a practice change the conversation in the office?
So there's a lot of things that are all about marketing, like, building the relationships and that kind of thing. But it's also about, focus on, bringing the new technology, new information, new science. My goodness, in the last 15 years, there's been so much new science, but yet there's so many practices that don't talk about it. And there's still a huge gap with the public. They don't know, the general public doesn't understand the connection between, like, for instance, periodontal disease and diabetes or heart disease or all of the different things now that have been tied to and linked to periodontal disease. So instead of in your hygiene appointments, and again, I was guilty, instead of the appointment being a social visit and talking about, the grandkids and the soccer and the politics or whatever it is that you like to talk about with your patients, instead of talking about those things primarily, talk about why they need to come in. Talk about what's going on with perio, even if they don't have it, because when do you want to try and prevent that stuff from happening, before or after somebody's been diagnosed with the disease? Yeah. You want to talk about it before so that you can prevent it. That's the true meaning of prevention, right?
Yeah.
So you have to change that conversation, and there's a lot of little tips and tricks, building value for your schedule and building value for your team and having conversations and using eye contact. There's so much that's about the conversation itself that you've got to tweak. Little things, but they make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And then, of course, insurance.
Screw insurance.
I have a comment, though, on what you just said there
Sure.
before we move on to insurance stuff. So I'm a marketer. That's what I studied, and that's what I continue studying. Most effective marketing strategies are education, and they call it content marketing, where you educate and inform people. And I think that there's a huge, you mentioned it, that there's all this new technology and this new information out there, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's educating the patient base and the consumers about it, right? So I think that's a really good tip that is definitely overlooked. And a lot of practice can definitely benefit by creating educational material, content. I mean, Ben, you and I both create education for the industry, and the same goes for dentists, right? Create education for your patients. Ben and I, we own a podcast. We write for Dental Economics and other magazines, and that's a form of how we educate people. Well, the same thing goes for practices there, Andrea, and that's kind of what I wanted to say there. So let's move on to insurance.
Well, before we do, though, I want to even add more onto that, if it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not, though, I totally agree. We've got to create those materials, but if we just try and, we can't be passive about it. We have to. We can't just passively say, here, read this. Whether it's on Facebook or a brochure in our practice or a newsletter or whatever, we have to also talk about it.
Exactly.
We have to bring it up, because if the message is repeated and the message is heard from multiple people in the practice several times during an appointment or in the lifespan of the patient in the practice, if they're hearing the same message over and over and over again, they're going to start getting it.
Yep.
But if we just try and be passive about it, we're not going to get as far as we could.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think one of the advantages that we have in the dental office is that, number one, patients perceive you as the know-all as it comes to their insurance benefits, and you can control that dialogue and perhaps even eliminate insurance as an obstacle for the patients, at least from a payment perspective, and give value, help patients eliminate that insurance-driven mentality that is so pervasive, so poisonous in our industry.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's key. This morning I got an email from a client, and she says, my husband and I are so sick of taking these in-network discounts. Can we start dropping more PPO plans? And we helped them drop one plan last year. You want to slowly wean yourself off of them,
right? Especially
for a practice that isn't really trained to have the value conversation as an out-of-network provider.
Right.
And this morning they said we want to drop them all, and I'm thinking
we're ready.
No,
Take your time.
There's a process. You have to understand the value conversation. And they're like, well, why can't we just be like the practice next door that is 100% fee for service? And I said, well,
there's a strategy.
Have you been in their practice as a patient? Go in and have a patient experience with them, and I can guarantee you're going to learn a lot about the differences between what it takes to be a fully fee-for-service provider and what it doesn't take to be, what it takes to fail as a fee-for-service provider. And, a big part of that is the value add and the patient experience and allowing the patient just to have a wonderful experience and the healthcare education. You have to be in control of that dialogue. Now, Andrea, I understand that you have a story about a doctor successfully stalling the Delta PPO changes in Massachusetts. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no, I love this. He, this is a practice that was in Cambridge. And so right in the heart of all the different universities, and a lot of their patient base, long-term patient base, 30 years, some of these people have been professors at, Harvard and MIT and all the different universities there. And they were all on Delta Premier. And Delta Premier, of course, Delta is doing away with Premier throughout the country, and not, they're really pushing to stop selling Premier plans en masse, and they might. I don't know exactly where all of it stands, but what was very interesting is this doctor, he was very proactive. He had about 600 patients in his practice. This man doesn't even have a website. He does no marketing, marketing, and he is way booked out. And he can't. He has a hard time bringing on new patients even. They just don't have the space for it. But in any case, he was very proactive, and he sent out a letter to all 600 of the patients in his practice that were on Delta Premier. And he said, look, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. And your employer you have choices. And we've crunched the numbers, and, he kind of, in the letter, it was a long letter, but he explained briefly what the difference is between Premier and PPO and what that would mean for them and what it would mean for him as a business owner, and how he would have to, there was, because of the discrepancy in the reimbursement, he would have to potentially look at cutting costs elsewhere. And he said, I can't feel good about the dentistry that I provide for you if I was to have to do that. So he said, so this is what it means for me. And he said, and this is what you can do about it. And he told all of them, all these patients, contact your HR department. They're the ones that can fight back. And, they can contact Delta and say, our people, we can't do this to them. This is a benefit that we provide or that they're paying for, and we're not comfortable with these changes. And that letter ended up getting sent to Delta. And they called the practice and they said, so no, you're totally misunderstanding what's happening here. And this isn't at all what we're going to do. And you're not going to see any decrease in reimbursements. And just lie. It felt like a lie after lie after lie. And they were just really, I was really proud of them as a practice because, they stood up and they took the time and the money to educate their patients, and it paid off because a lot of those patients, they also said in this letter, don't forget, you have an option to choose a different plan. You're given 3 options, and if you choose the cheapest one, that's the type of benefits you're going to get. And that's something I think a lot of offices forget to remind their patients, right?
Yeah.
And then they did hear, though, or my understanding is that they heard that even though a lot of the doctors had signed up for the PPO, that they were really kind of postponing this push to get Premier out. I don't know this is third person, so I don't know exactly what that means for them, but I was really impressed with the fact that Delta got a hold of their letter. That made me so happy.
That is awesome.
Yes.
I've been following this change. When it first started in the state of Washington back in 2012, and then Massachusetts making a similar move last year in terms of eliminating the Premier. And what I've learned is that it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. A lot of times, doctors, they look at this somewhat like how a teenager looks at voting, for November voting for a president or any other political campaign, my vote won't make much of a difference. I'm just one person, without really understanding that, your one vote, it can make a huge impact. I talk about games of inches all the time. Football is a game of inches, basketball, any sport, dentistry is a game of inches, especially when it comes to fighting PPO challenges. It's the squeaky wheel that will get the grease. And many practices in Massachusetts that have engaged in similar types of efforts in communicating with their their patients and the employers, it has made a big difference in stalling the Delta PPO changes. The other thing I want to talk about just here for a second, I know Jordan has another question he wants to ask you, is...
You're fine, dude.
So we're on a mission to educate brokers nationwide. There's another effort that I'm a part of, and in speaking to brokers across the country, part of the problem is that the brokers are convinced that, number one, we need to steer patients towards Delta PPO. They think that it's great that Delta's getting rid of the Delta Premier. It means less cost for the employer. It's a cheaper policy for the employer. And they're so amazed when we have a frank conversation with them saying, well, how would you feel about purchasing a dental plan where doctors started to get rid of the best materials, or doctors started to cut the time spent on your visits? In an effort for them to accommodate change, would you want somebody messing with your teeth that didn't have 100% didn't have the support financially to give you whatever you have, whether it's a crown, a filling, those things are very important. And what you see in this industry in this day and age, and I don't say this to accuse dentists at all, but the reality is that there's a small community of doctors out there that when they get these changes, they start to find cheaper ways and use cheaper labs and cheaper materials.
But it makes sense, right? Because they're being forced to reduce their costs, and they need to maintain profit margins to manage their business, right? So it's like...
And to me, that's the problem, is that you start to then look at things from the perspective of how to survive rather than from the perspective of how to deliver the best care, And it's such a fine balance, because I don't know what the right thing is to do. All I know is that when I go into the dentist, I'll say, look, I don't care. I don't have insurance. I don't care what it costs. I want the best care, period. But if I did have insurance, I would walk into a practice if I needed a crown and they did CEREC crown, knowing dentistry, I'd say, look, these anterior crowns, I want master ceramics, any master ceramic work. I want glazing and staining. I want the very best that you can, and I'll pay out of pocket for any of the additional charges that material charges associated with this treatment, because I know, I'm educated in dentistry, and Andrew, I think you're spot on with the education. There's PPO coverage, and then there are other electives that the patients can pay for, whether it be crowns, implants, bridges, or you name it. But it's all about that education that the patients need, and you can control that within the dental office, which is the best news.
Right. Well, and kind of along those same lines, do you remember back, what was it, like 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago, when Cigna sent out the letter to all the patients that were, I had several offices this happened to anyway. They sent out a letter to their patients saying, we've rated your practice that you go to on a 1, 2, or 3 star basis, and they based that 1, 2, or 3 stars solely on out-of-pocket costs for the patient. For the patient. And and we understood at that time, and of course they rated the ones that were higher for out of pocket as the 1 star. And then
I see.
Right? So it was
ridiculous.
Totally backwards, totally misleading. And what I thought was very interesting is that some of that was based on, or at least my understanding, what had been shared with us was that some of that was based on the fact that they were oversaturated in areas with PPO practices, and so that also came into play with some of it. But what was interesting is the dentists, and I believe the ADA even got involved and said, this is totally unacceptable, and it worked. It worked. So if we stomp our feet and do the hawka, we'll be able to get them, call them out to war, man. It's right?
Yeah. Gosh, Ben, you gotta teach all of us how to do the hawk.
That's right.
I will. It's so funny. The first time I did the Hawk on stage was at the Dental Success Institute, Dr. Mark Casas.
Yeah.
And they had visitors.
That's on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
it's on YouTube.
They had visitors from New
Google
Zealand.
It, everybody.
Okay. And I said, I'm going to do the haka just to welcome our visitors, and I did the haka. And once I was done, I said, okay, for you Americans, that's how you negotiate with insurance companies.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
No, but I think you're right, Andrew. You're spot on. I mean, I'm so involved with all these advocacy efforts across the country, and so passionate about following the efforts, and a lot of people don't realize the value of that ADA membership. It's a mentality of what have they done for me lately. There are thousands of advocacy efforts that go on every year at the ADA level, like what you talked about, that the doctor community just doesn't realize. And so if there's any greater organization out there to help support issues as it pertains to insurance advocacy, I do think the ADA does a wonderful job there. There's a lot more that can be improved, but the dollars from as I learn more, as I'm becoming more involved with the ADA, I'm learning more that, gosh, there's so much that goes on advocacy-wise, as long as it doesn't violate antitrust. So that's one big thing that I know that they've done is that whole Cigna deal. Basically, what it was is it's discrimination. Giving the patients a false sense of a false rating based upon one factor alone, not based upon the quality that's done in the office. And the ADA was pretty successful being able to quash those efforts, which I thought was great.
It's really good to hear that, Ben, because I've long wondered what the ADA does to help support dentists as far as insurance goes, because what I see, and I've had other people say this to me, but what we see out there as far as what their efforts are with the general public is it's the same thing that they've been saying for the last 40 years. Sugar's bad for your teeth. You need to floss. Go see your dentist twice a year. And it's less about the science, and it's less about what insurance isn't, and that kind of thing. And so it's good to hear that there is stuff happening on that level. So that's really good. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, I think
that's interesting.
I mean, for years I was also questioning the value of ADA membership. And I actually started donating. I donated to the CDA, California Dental Association, when they started to engage with Delta Dental.
Nice. Oh yeah.
And so any state that does any type of advocacy work like that, we send them money. If we could become ADA members or state association members, we would. But I'm heavily involved with the Utah Dental Association now, and I see what goes on behind the scenes. And I'm like, holy cow! All that needs to be communicated to the members.
Yes,
the
they
dentists.
need to do that. That's where they're going to get their membership.
Yeah.
They need to do that.
There's just so much going on. So
great.
As we're talking about advocacy, especially as it pertains to dental insurance, I just want to reassure everybody that I've done my homework, and certain states are doing a lot of work, a lot of great work, but the ADA at the highest level is definitely engaged in a lot of advocacy work against insurance, things that they can legally do, and it's making an impact, I believe. We
ought to bring somebody from the ADA on or something, Ben.
I would love that.
Do you have a connection? Yeah, I think that'd
do.
Be good.
I'll set it up.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's set it up. I think that's a good idea. All right, Andrea, I got another question for you.
Okay.
So you're probably in tons of practices, every month, seeing what they do. What do you see as the practice owner's biggest challenge from day to day?
Yeah. So whether it's a new practice or an existing practice, oftentimes we see that the dentists forget that they've got to treat this like a business.
Yeah.
This is a business, and they need to make decisions on a higher level than just dentistry. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I agree.
Yes, yeah. What are your tips there?
What's that?
What are some of your tips there for how can a dentist act more like a business owner?
Well, first of all, they need to get the help that they need. That's one thing. I don't see that they, look for help in the right places. I see a lot of dentists that are still really trying to do their own books, their own, meaning taxes and QuickBooks and that kind of thing. They're trying to do their own marketing. They're trying to do their own HIPAA. They're trying to do, they're trying to manage all of these things that really now we can't do. 20 years ago when I got into dentistry, 25 years ago, a lot of practices, and even as a kid, I was in practices because my dad's in dentistry. He's not a dentist, but he's in dentistry as well. And,
oh, cool.
It was a dentist, a hygienist, a front desk person, and an assistant. That was a standard practice. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very different. And you, at that time, one person had the available time to be able to do all of these things. It's not like that anymore. There's way more regulation. There's more technology, more science, more marketing. At that time, you couldn't even, it was like considered unethical to do anything more than hang a shingle. I mean, it was just, it was a totally different time. And so you've got to hire the right people, and you've got to hire people that know they're special, that they're very focused, on marketing or whatever. And so don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to get specialists in outsourcing.
Yeah, so what you're saying is understand what needs to be done in the business and then delegate what you can't do. Don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, absolutely. Because dentists want to do the dentistry. They don't want to. So they say to me all the time, I just want to do dentistry. I don't want to run a business, run the business. I don't really want to be involved. I'm just going to trust my office manager to do that. Well, the problem is you don't know what the office manager's background is. And a lot of times office managers are, they're limited in their business experience. I mean, how many of office managers have I met that actually have like a business degree? Maybe on one hand, I don't even know. And so you need to hire people that are specialists that can do this stuff for you. You don't get to, I don't want people to just stick their head in the sand and do the dentistry. I want them to outsource to the right people and do the dentistry so that they can concentrate on the dentistry.
Yeah,
Awesome.
As business owners, because, we all own our businesses, and we get stuck sometimes in the mentality of let's try to solve it in-house as much as we can before we outsource it and find a professional. Let me share an example. So it took me 3 years to get my business to a state of profitability. And, once you hit that, all the old habits of trying to do things in-house, at least for me, they never went away. Like if there was a problem, I go to YouTube to try to solve it. And so most recently I had a hard drive fail, an external hard drive.
You texted me.
Yeah. And I was like, crap, I don't want to spend, I took it to Best Buy and they said, well, you need to spend at least $1,000 repairing this. Like, no way. So I jump on YouTube and I follow these instructions.
$1,000?
Yeah. Well, $1,000 would have been cheap because I jumped on YouTube
Really?
and started to follow these instructions. And I did not knowing, me just thinking, I've used YouTube in the past to fix my car and do some, at-home stuff and issues with the computer.
YouTube's the best.
I know, but not in this situation. I open the hard drive, and I start to try. I try to correct things in there according to how the YouTube guy said, and it didn't fix anything. In fact, it made it worse. And now, rather than paying $1,000 to fix a hard drive, it's going to cost me at least $2,500 because of my own mistakes, my own faults. And that's the example of trying to keep too much in-house. When there's I think there's a line when something that requires specialty work that you have a struggle with, it's cheaper to outsource it than it is to do it in-house and make big mistakes like I did.
Absolutely.
Totally. I agree.
And I think this whole business of outsourcing is a wonderful idea simply because it alleviates a lot of the stress as it pertains to running a business, as you have so much professional support. And we're fortunate in this day and age. If I were a dentist today, holy cow, it would be a lot easier than it was a few years ago because there's so many companies out there that do a wonderful job, from billing, verification of benefits, coaching, training, membership programs, which, by the way, I'd love to hear about your experience, Andrea, with your own dentist, because I know that you're talking about your dentist and her experience with the financing program. Do you mind covering that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. So when I moved here to Austin, again, I moved sight unseen. That's twice in my lifetime I've done that. I don't know what my problem is with that. But in any case, when I moved here, I had to find a dentist and for my own care, and found her website. And I really liked her website. And I went and talked with her, and I did not have dental coverage. I just, had an HSA, and I talked to them about getting onto a membership program, and they had not heard of that idea before. And so I talked to them about that, and they loved it, and they implemented that, and they did start doing it, and it's been very successful. It's been wonderful for me as a patient, and they have shared that with a lot of their patients. Now, unfortunately, she's also started accepting a whole bunch of PPOs recently, which is a shame. I think that she's missed the boat on that. But they really do. The membership programs are amazing. I actually had the pleasure of working with you guys, Boom Cloud, and getting that into another practice, a different practice. At the end of last year is when we implemented that, and they loved it. They were so excited to be able to offer that to their patients, and they were ready to go. Man, they hit the ground running. Yeah. And so it's such a great alternative for those patients that want to come to you as a dentist. They want to come to you, but if they're still insurance minded, and they see that as a savings, which really it's just a coupon, right, that you pay for, then the in-office membership plans are just amazing. They're awesome. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Jordan, you're my hero. In-house membership plans.
Oh, totally.
Ben, you're my hero. No. Haka, you negotiate, fees doing the Haka. I can't help people set up membership programs doing the Haka. Yeah.
It's a great way to force people to do things you want them to do, but we'll talk about that another time.
I'm going to start using your strategies. Yeah. Andrea, thank you for the plug.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, you've been awesome to work with, and I really think the tips that you've taught our audience are very useful, and anyone listening out there, listen to what Andrea says. So, Andrea, what is if any of our listeners want to contact you or reach out, maybe have questions or want to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Oh gosh, I'd love for them to visit my website, which is www.onpoint, ONPOINT, onpoint.consulting. And then my email address, if they want to contact me directly, is andrea@onpoint.consulting. And I'm very excited to talk to people. I will always offer to do a free consultation call, and let me hear what your concerns are and what your goals are, and let's see if there's something I can help with. Even if we don't end up working together, I'm always willing to share some information to help people have a better life. That's really what I want, is for people to have some fulfillment and with their careers. So that'd be great.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So reach out to Andrea there. Ben, Andrea, any last thoughts here today?
I don't think so.
No, I'm good. It's just been a pleasure, Andrea, having you on our program today. We just want to thank you for what you do for dentistry. There's just so much that you do that makes a positive impact for dentistry as a whole, on the business side and on the clinical side as well. So on behalf of our listeners, thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful having you, all these experiences that you shared. So grateful for you and your time and for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate everything that you both do.
Thanks,
Andrea.
Andrea.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.